Now listen, some of you binge these stories like late night snacks and still don't hit subscribe. That's like sneaking into a wedding, eating 2 slices of cake, and leaving before the toast. Go on, hit that button. Keeps the lights on, keeps the secrets spilling, and makes sure you don't miss the part where the floor drops out. All right, here's where it begins. Claire asked me to grab the winter coats from the basement. Harmless chore. But the box I opened didn't smell like cedar or mothballs. It smelled like trouble. Inside, under a tangle of scarves, was a hardback diary. Blue cloth cover, edges worn just enough to look like history. My name scratched across the front in handwriting I hadn't seen since grade school. I sat down on the cold concrete, cracked it open. First page I landed on. I pushed Alex down the ravine. I liked watching him cry. My breath stuck in my throat. Because here's the thing. Alex was clumsy, sure, but I never touched him. I remember mosquito bites, water balloon fights, dragging mud through his mom's kitchen while she yelled at us. But pushing him? Laughing while he cried? That wasn't me. That was fiction. Someone wearing my voice like a stolen coat. Claire came halfway down the stairs, twisting her wedding ring like she was trying to tighten it back into truth. Dan, she said, I found it in storage. It doesn't look good. I shut the book, harder than I meant to. Claire, this isn't mine. She folded her arms. It's your name, your handwriting. Close, I told her. Close isn't truth. The words hung between us. We carried it upstairs like it might detonate. Set it on the kitchen counter. The lamplight made it look innocent. Just paper, just ink. But it pulsed with accusation. Now, some of you are sitting here gobbling up this story like it's a midnight fridge raid. Cold pizza, questionable leftovers, the works, and still haven't hit subscribe. That's like showing up at a neighbor's cookout, piling your plate with ribs, and then slipping out before helping clean the grill. Don't be that guest. Hit subscribe. Keeps the lights on. Keeps the secrets spilling. Back to the mess. Claire wouldn't sit. She stood with her arms crossed, eyes darting between me and the book like she didn't know which one of us she should believe. Dan, she whispered, what if it is yours? What if you just forgot? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Forgot? You think I forgot pushing a kid into a ravine? Forgot being cruel for fun? Her silence said, maybe. I opened the diary again, flipped through pages. The writing was careful, too careful. Kids don't hesitate mid-stroke. They press too hard, smear ink, leave fingerprints of joy or guilt. This? Every letter measured, every line neat. Look at this, I said, shoving it toward her. 10-year-olds don't write like this. They don't spell bus pass in a town that never had buses. They don't mention PlayStation in '93 when the thing wasn't even out yet. It's wrong. Claire bit her lip. Or maybe it's right, and you just don't want to remember. That cut deeper than I expected. Because marriage isn't built on logic. It's built on trust. And right then, her trust was wobbling. I leaned on the counter, staring at the book like it might blink first. This isn't memory, Claire. This is sabotage. Somebody put this here. Somebody who knows me well enough to make it sound almost true. She finally sat, head in her hands. Do you hear yourself? You're telling me someone forged your childhood, planted it in our basement, and I just happened to find it? Yes, the word came out too fast, too sharp. And for the first time in 10 years of marriage, Claire looked at me like she wasn't sure who she was married to. The house was quiet, but the silence wasn't ours anymore. It belonged to the diary, sitting smug and silent between us. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just an old diary. This was a weapon. Because the thing about lies, they're heavy. They don't just sit on paper. They press on your marriage, your friendships, your memory, until you start questioning yourself. And that night, staring at that book under the lamp while Claire watched me like a stranger, I had to ask the one question that would haunt me. Who the hell is trying to rewrite my life? Claire and I sat at the kitchen island like 2 chess players frozen mid-game, pieces scattered, neither of us sure who'd moved last. The diary sat between us, its blue cloth cover daring me to pick it up again. Claire tapped one finger on it. Tap, 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 like she was knocking on the door of my credibility. "Tell me it's not what it looks like," she whispered, eyes fixed on the book instead of me. "It's not," I said, voice rougher than I meant. "It's worse." Her head snapped up. "Worse than you admitting you liked lying?" "Yeah, because I didn't write that." I pushed the diary toward her like a crime scene folder. "Somebody else did. Somebody who knows enough about me to make it sound like the truth." Claire crossed her arms tight, like she was holding herself together by sheer compression. "Dan, the handwriting, close," I cut in. "Close isn't truth. You know that better than anyone. You design houses. You'd never call a knockoff blueprint safe to build." Her jaw clenched, and for a moment I thought she might throw the book at me. Instead, she let out a shaky laugh that didn't sound like her. "God, listen to you. Comparing a forged diary to architecture. It's not just a diary, Claire. It's a weapon, and it's aimed at us." I pulled out my phone, thumb trembling, and called Marcus, my best friend, my lawyer, my devil's advocate since college. Put him on speaker so Claire could hear every word. "Marcus," I said, skipping hello, "hypothetical. If a childhood diary shows up out of nowhere with confessions I never made, stuff that could nuke my marriage, what's my first move?" On the other end, silence. Then his voice, sharp, calm, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this brand of crazy. "First, stop saying hypothetical. Second, document everything. Photos, timestamps, chain of custody. Treat it like evidence in a trial. Because that's what it is." Claire's arms tightened across her chest. "He can hear me, you know." "Good," Marcus said, dry as sandpaper. "Then hear this too. Lies are tar. Once they're on you, they don't wash off. You've got to burn the shirt." "Marcus," I muttered. "No, I'm serious. Someone's building a version of Dan that never existed. And if you two don't get ahead of it, people will start believing the forgery more than the flesh and blood man standing in front of them." Claire's face went pale. She turned away, muttering to herself. I caught fragments. What if it's true? What if I don't know him? "Claire," I said softly, "look at me. I'm right here." She spun back, eyes glassy. "Then prove it. Because right now, this book feels louder than your words." Now, I know some of you listening are probably thinking, "Come on, Dan, just get a handwriting analyst. Case closed." And sure, that's logical. But marriage doesn't run on logic. It runs on trust. And once trust sprains, everything limps. Also, quick sidebar, because I checked the channel stats this morning. 93% of you listening haven't subscribed yet. 93. That's like showing up to Thanksgiving empty-handed, stealing the turkey legs, and still asking for pie to go. Don't be that relative. Hit subscribe. Keeps the heat on. Keeps me caffeinated enough to tell you the rest of this madness. Okay, back to Claire, tearing holes in my sanity. She paced the kitchen, bare feet on tile, the sound sharp as punctuation. "I don't want to fight you, Dan. I don't." "Then don't," I said. "Help me figure out who staged this circus." Her voice broke. "Do you hear how crazy that sounds? You're telling me someone out there rewrote your childhood, planted it in our basement, and conveniently I'm the one who finds it?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. That stopped her cold. She blinked. "God, you even sound like you believe it." "I do believe it," I said, softer now. "Because if I don't, the only other option is that I'm lying to you. And Claire." I stepped closer, palms open. That's the one thing I've never done. She didn't back away. But she didn't step closer either. Just stared at me, like I was a riddle written in a language she used to know. Later that night, after she finally climbed the stairs and left me with silence, I sat alone at the table. The diary lay open under the lamp. The entries were deliberate, written to sound childish, but with a precision no 10-year-old ever had. A predator imitating play. I traced the ink with my finger. The letters slanted just a hair too evenly. The vocabulary was off. Bus pass in a town where we never had buses. PlayStation. A year before, I'd even seen one. Someone had gotten close, close enough to pass at a glance, but not close enough for me. And as I stared at those lies pretending to be my truth, I felt it for the first time. The floor under me wasn't wood, wasn't carpet, wasn't solid at all. It was ice. And someone out there had a chisel. You ever visit your childhood home and realize the walls remember you better than your own family does? That was me, standing on my mother's porch, holding a lasagna dish she insisted on reclaiming, staring at a front door that felt less like welcome home and more like a courtroom summons. Mom opened it before I knocked, like she'd been waiting. Cardigan draped just so, hair pinned up like she had an audience, smile rehearsed. "Oh, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug I didn't ask for. "You look thin. Is Claire feeding you?" There it was, the first jab dressed up as concern. Classic Eleanor Cross. I stepped inside. Same scent as always. Lemon polish and lavender sachets, like the house was preserved in amber. The diary weighed heavy in my bag. "We found something," I said carefully. "From the basement boxes. My old diary." A flicker, quick as a shutter click, in her eyes. Then she tilted her head, all innocence. "You loved that little book. Always scribbling. My brilliant boy." I set it on the table, flipped it open to the page about pushing Alex Engel into the ravine. "Mom, this says I hurt him. For fun." Her hand trembled for half a second before she covered it with a sip of tea. "Boys do foolish things," she said softly. "Memories. Blur." Quick pause, because I checked the channel stats, and apparently 92% of you are listening without subscribing. That's like borrowing someone's Netflix password, watching the whole series, and still texting, "What's the Wi-Fi code again?" Come on, tap that button. Keeps me caffeinated enough to dig through this madness. All right, back to the diary that refuses to stay buried. "Not like this," I said flatly. "The ink's too fresh. Some of these pages weren't even bound in the same way." I checked. She smiled again, smaller this time. "Daniel, you always were imaginative. Maybe you don't remember as well as you think." That's when I saw it, on her end table, half hidden under a church bulletin. A receipt from an archival supply store. Acid-free glue. Binding tape. I knew the place. I'd interviewed a forger once who bought his tools there. I leaned back. "You keeping busy, Mom?" "Of course," she chirped. "Book club, church committee, making sure my son isn't living too far from home where he might forget his mother." The words landed sharper than she meant them to. Or maybe exactly as sharp. I forced a smile, thanked her for the lasagna she insisted I take, and walked out into the cool night. Halfway down the block, I stopped. Looked back at the house that raised me. Windows glowing warm, curtains drawn just enough to watch from. And for the first time, I wondered if the enemy wasn't outside trying to ruin me. Maybe she'd been sitting in that living room the whole time. The diary sat between us on the kitchen table like a third guest we hadn't invited, but couldn't kick out. Every time I looked at it, I felt less like a husband and more like a defendant waiting on a verdict. Claire sat across from me, her laptop open, a yellow notepad to her right. She wasn't just doubting me anymore. She was investigating me. The architect in her had built blueprints of suspicion, neat columns of dates, events, memories she wasn't sure were still safe to believe. She jabbed her pen at one page of photocopies that had shown up in the mail that morning. No return address, just a manila envelope dropped through our slot. "Look at this. This one says 2007. Hotel receipts." She leaned back, arms folded. Why would someone know to point me toward that year? I tried to laugh, but it came out jagged. Because someone's staging a circus, and they know you'll buy a ticket if they hand you the stub. That's not fair. Her voice cracked, softer now. "You don't understand what it's like, Dan. To be married to someone. To share a bed, a house, a life, and then have a book tell you maybe you never knew him at all." I dragged my hands over my face. "Claire, I have every receipt from 2007. You know me. I keep boxes of paperwork like a dragon keeps treasure. I can prove where I was, what I was doing." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Then why does this feel so real?" "Because it's designed to. Whoever did this isn't just forging handwriting. They're forging trust. We sat there, the hum of the refrigerator louder than both of us. Finally, I pulled the notepad toward me. Fine, let's do it your way. I drew 2 columns across the page. Your list, I said, pushing it back to her. Dates, names, memories you think the diary claims. Put them here. And on mine, I'll write down what doesn't fit. The tells, the mistakes. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she started writing, her handwriting tight and angular, mine looping and uneven beside it. Her side filled with sharp entries. 2007 hotel receipts. 1993 theft from my father's wallet. 2010 night, she swore I came home late and never explained why. On mine, I wrote, Bus Pass, 1992. We had no buses. PlayStation in 1993. Not released yet. Handwriting too steady for a child. She looked at my column, lips pressed together. Her wall was still up, but there was a crack in the mortar. At midnight, she put her pen down. I don't want to lose us, she said. So quiet it almost disappeared under the hum of the fridge. I reached across the table, laid my hand over hers. My voice was just as tired as hers. But steady. Then don't. Help me hold the line. Her eyes filled, but she didn't pull away. The diary was still there, sitting smug and silent between us. But for the first time, I felt like maybe we weren't fighting each other. We were finally starting to fight it. Marcus didn't come alone. He showed up at my door with a woman who looked like she could read your grocery list and tell you what kind of secrets you were hiding. Forensic document examiner. Thin as a paperclip. Glasses low on her nose. Voice clipped sharp enough to cut. She spread her tools across the kitchen table. Magnifiers, angled lamps, gloves, a camera with a lens big enough to capture the guilt in anyone's handwriting. Claire hovered in the corner, coffee in hand, watching like a juror trying not to lean one way or the other. The examiner flipped the diary open with surgical care. Age of ink is tricky, she said, but handwriting isn't just about letters. It's about rhythm. Children scribble without thinking. They press too hard, loop too wide, smear the ink. They don't hesitate. She angled the light, and suddenly the words I'd been accused by looked different. Hesitant, deliberate, like a counterfeit signature on a check. Hold up, because this part right here, it's wild. And yet, some of you are still freeloading like cousins who only show up at family reunions when there's free pie. Hit subscribe. Seriously, it's the digital version of bringing a dish to the table. Keeps the drama flowing and the receipts coming. Okay, back to the basement where my family history was getting edited like a bad draft. See here? She said, tapping the page. Whoever wrote this stopped mid-stroke. Went back. Adults imitate, but they overthink. Kids never do. Claire stepped closer, brow furrowed. So you're saying parts of this are forged, the examiner said simply. Pages replaced. Adhesive in the spine. The binding's been tampered with. Claire's lips parted. She looked at me, but not with relief. Not yet. Doubt doesn't vanish just because evidence shows up. Doubt lingers, like smoke after a fire. That night, Marcus poured himself a whiskey in my living room, while the examiner packed up. Well, he said, swirling the glass, I'd bet my license this wasn't 10-year-old Dan confessing his inner sociopath. Somebody's playing editor with your past. I tried to laugh. It came out hollow. Editors usually fix mistakes. This one's trying to ruin the whole book. Claire didn't say anything. She just stared at the diary sitting closed on the table, as if it were breathing. When they finally left, I sat in the basement, alone with the boxes of our life. Old tax returns, wedding photos, my father's toolbox rusting in the corner. The diary sat on the shelf where I'd left it. Ordinary, harmless, except it wasn't. I ran my fingers across the spines of dusty binders and cardboard flaps, and I realized something. Whoever was doing this didn't just want to ruin me. They wanted to bury me in my own history. So I set a trap. Nothing cinematic. Just a single hair laid across the seam of the diary. So delicate it would break if someone opened it. A motion sensor tucked into the ceiling corner, synced to my phone. Then I waited. I told Claire I wanted us to take a weekend away. To clear our heads, I said, "to talk without this thing between us." She agreed, cautiously, and I knew the moment the words left my mouth that my mother would hear. She always did. News in our family didn't travel. It spread, like a rumor whispered to the walls. At the cabin, the silence between Claire and me was thick, but it was almost a relief compared to the silence back home. We tried to drink wine, played half a game of Scrabble, went to bed early pretending to be tired. Then, at 8:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Basement. I pulled up the feed. Grainy black and white footage, but clear enough. A figure moving through the boxes like she'd packed them herself. Small frame. Steady hands. She didn't wander. She didn't search. She walked straight to the shelf where the diary sat, like it was calling her name. My mother. She opened it carefully, the way she used to open my report cards, slid something between the pages, smoothed it down. Then she spoke. Voice low, tender, almost like a lullaby. "It's for your own good. You'll come home. You'll see." She closed the book, set it back in its place, and walked out with the calm of someone watering the garden. I stared at the screen, long after she was gone. Claire asked what was wrong. I couldn't even answer, because this wasn't just about a forged childhood anymore. It was about a mother writing over her son's life in real time and daring him to stop her. I set the table like it was any other Wednesday night. Roasted chicken, green beans, candles lit just bright enough to fake warmth. Claire moved silently beside me, handing me plates without meeting my eyes. She didn't need to. We were both waiting for the same thing. The diary sat on the console table in the corner, open just enough to invite curiosity. It was bait, plain and simple, and my mother had never been able to resist a story left half-finished. When she arrived, she came armed with her smile, the cardigan, the casserole dish, the hug that smelled of lavender and ownership. "Oh, this looks lovely," she said, kissing my cheek like nothing in the world had shifted. Family dinners are so important. We sat. Conversation clinked along like cutlery. Small, harmless. Claire asked about her book club. I nodded at the right moments. My mother bragged about her roses. None of it mattered. The diary waited, quiet as a loaded gun on the table's edge. Halfway through dessert, she noticed it. Her gaze snagged on those blue covers, pages just slightly askew. She reached for her napkin, but her hand drifted closer. "Oh," she said, rising, feigning surprise. "Your old diary. I haven't seen that in years." She picked it up with careful fingers, flipped toward the back, straight to the pocket she'd made. Her eyes widened, her gasp perfectly timed. She pulled out a folded page. "Daniel," she said, voice trembling like an actress with a matinee crowd. "How could you write this?" Claire stiffened beside me. I stayed still. "Read it," I said. She unfolded the page. Claire never needed to know the truth about the hotel. She let it hang in the air, poisonous, heavy. Then she looked at me, eyes full of righteous disappointment. "You lied to her." I let the silence stretch until I felt it vibrate. Then I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The video filled the room with grainy footage. My mother in the basement, opening the diary, sliding the page inside. Her voice, soft, tender, undeniable. "It's for your own good. You'll come home. You'll see." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. My mother froze. The page she'd been holding trembled like it wanted to confess for her. "Why?" My voice was flat, more tired than angry. "Why do this?" Her face collapsed, the mask slipping. "Because she's taking you from me," she hissed, sudden and sharp. "She doesn't love you like I do. You were happiest here. Before her. You were mine." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away from me. I didn't look away from my mother. "You forged my past to destroy my present," I said. "That's not love. That's control dressed in a cardigan." She reached for me, hand trembling, but I stepped back. The motion felt like cutting a cord that had tied me my entire life. The diary slipped from her grip, hit the floor, and landed open on lies that no longer had power. For once, The silence didn't belong to her. It belonged to me. We changed the locks the next morning. No ceremony, no warning. Just a locksmith with a drill, a bucket of new brass, and Claire standing on the porch with her arms crossed, watching the last door my mother had a key to vanish into metal dust. The diary sat boxed in the corner, sealed tight with the forensic report tucked inside. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. Not yet. Evidence deserves a shelf, not a shredder. Claire and I didn't talk much for a few days. Words felt like furniture in a burned house. Still there, but charred, fragile. We ate dinner quietly, watched TV with the volume low, and drifted to bed like two people learning how to be married again. It wasn't until the fourth night that she finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for doubting you." I shook my head. "Don't be. If someone had handed me proof you weren't who you said you were, I'd have doubted too." She reached across the couch, fingers finding mine. "I don't want to live like that again. Waiting for paper to tell me who my husband is." I squeezed her hand. "Then don't. We decide what's true. Not ink. Not someone else's story." Her shoulders softened, and for the first time in weeks, I felt her lean against me. As for my mother, we set boundaries. Hard ones. Marcus sat in the room when I told her. Limited contact. No keys. No sudden visits. Counseling, if she ever wanted a road back. She cried, of course. Pleaded. Tried to twist it into betrayal. But this time I didn't flinch. This time I didn't step back into the role of dutiful son. I just stood, silent, until her words withered in the air. One night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, pen in hand. The diary wasn't open, but I didn't need it anymore. I wrote a single line on a scrap of paper and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a peach. Some people don't just rewrite your story. They ghostwrite your guilt. I stared at it for a long while, then turned off the light. And that's the thing about fire. It doesn't always leave ruins. Sometimes it clears the smoke just enough to breathe again. Claire and I, we're still figuring it out. Trust doesn't snap back like a rubber band. It mends like glass. Slow, fragile, visible in the light. But we're trying. Together. And me? I've learned this much. You can survive someone else's version of you, as long as you never stop writing your own. If this story struck a chord with you, take a moment to reflect. What would you have done if someone tried to rewrite your past? Would you fight to hold your truth, or let their version stand? Share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you know someone who needs to be reminded that their story belongs to them, pass this along. Your voice matters here. Join the conversation.